Welcome to the advanced webinar on the new LogiKal. My name is Sebastian Bode and today I will talk about more detailed about the new functions in the new LogiKal version 12. In the basic webinar we looked at getting started with projects and also with the construction. For an ideal introduction to the new LogiKal, the first webinar was mainly about the familiar functions in the new design. Today, we will talk more about the new function, the complete new functions, but the improvements to known possibilities will also not be forgotten. The element management is precisely one of these innovations, and that is why we are starting with it today. We all know that in projects, there are very often elements that do not differ at first glance. Geometry, design, and so on are completely identical. Then we simply have a quantity greater than 1 in LogiKal. As an example, we take this window and we have a quantity of 5 pieces here. So far, nothing new for you. However, at the latest on the construction side, these elements are going to be different, namely, for example, in the positioning in the building or in the time at which they should be installed. The element management is now available for this differentiation. Here, these 5 elements are differentiated accordingly and can, for example, be differentiated by a more detailed description. You see it here as an example on which side they should be installed. The position itself, an example, profiles, glazing, hardware, and so on, always remains the same. If these should also be different, you have to split the position. Of course, it is also possible to adjust the quantities here accordingly if changes occur. Here, it is easy, and you can directly also add here a description. And since pictures or details of the installation situation cannot be identical for all elements, you can simply add them individually, and you see it here for each element. Here it is an example document, but you can put everything you have here into the different elements. To say it in short, you will have an additional level in LogiKal for the organization of your projects and positions. In addition to the familiar project and position level, there is now an element level for detailed consideration of the different elements. We have talked about the installation location, and this installation location also determines the installation time and thus also the production time. And this is exactly what the fabrication phases, or as we call up to version 11, production units, are for. In short, for those who do not know this function yet, with fabrication phases you combine elements from different projects or even entire projects, and with that you can order, optimize and prepare them together for your production. Until now, it was done by simply selecting a certain number of elements. As we have just seen, the elements are now more precisely defined, and therefore you can determine at this point exactly which element with which installation location belongs in which fabrication phase. Due to tight schedules and high workload, it's become more and more important to only produce what is directly needed here. So we also looked at how to make the fabrication phases even more using when developing the version 12. You can already see one of these improvements here. You now not only have the option to pull the elements in the fabrication phases from the various projects, but you can also push the elements, you see it here, from the project into the various fabrication phases. You make the allocation from the project and do not have to jump back and forth for the allocation. In addition, we ask us how it is ensured that no changes subsequently made to the positions when they are already to production, especially when project management and production management are filled by different people. The distribution to the production lots should happen early for an ideal capacity planning. You see it. Afterwards, of course, changes to an element can and should be possible. Every time something changes. We now change the point of view to the production manager. Therefore, I go into the project center and change to the fabrication phases. We take as an example this one. When the production documents are printed or digitally transferred to the MES, for example, the production manager can adjust here the status accordingly. To production. We check that and then we go back into the project here. If the project manager now still wants to make changes to the element, he gets an information that the editing was interrupted, and it was not possible here. You therefore benefit 2 times. Elements cannot be changed later and you can be sure that the production status is kept. On the production side, the status shows directly that the elements have been prepared for the production and there's no duplication of certain fabrication phases. The fabrication phases were already a very practical thing in version 11, and I personally think that they have gained a lot from these improvements. At the end of this topic, I would like to give you 2 more small hints. In combination with the multi-window function that I showed you in the first webinar, you also have the option with production lots that you can move the elements from the projects into the fabrication phase by drag and drop. And the last hint, if you want to use the fabrication phases or if you want to test it, you have to log in with the corresponding module. If this is not available on a dongle, please contact us. So, you can see that in addition to the improved interface in the project area, we have also added and expanded the function that make your daily work easier. And that was just a look at the project area. There are also news waiting for you in the construction, and this includes one of the highlights in version 12. To show you this improvement, I have prepared here a simple curtain wall. Construction with the facades or windows and doors are becoming more and more demanding. Corresponding bends are nothing special anymore and are part of daily business. Therefore, such a construction will certainly not seem completely foreign to you. However, it is becoming more and more difficult to keep an overview of all connection situations and so on, and to take into account the correct cuttings and so on and so on. For this reason, we have put LogiKal on a completely new footing, so to speak. What was previously only ever designed on a 2D basis is now done in 3D. And this view is offered directly for selection in LogiKal 12. So you can view your designs in a full 3D view at any time to get an even better overview. My colleague once described it as a glossy position, and that really describes it very well. But this innovation is not only for this fantastic new view on the position. Let me venture a glimpse into the future at this point. With the new LogiKal, for example, you can take on many types of multi-layer constructions. This includes windows with roller shutters and or fall protection, window systems with several levels, and much more. And the detection of collisions in the hardware part will be also significantly improved with the 3D. LogiKal is thus taking a very big step into the future, and with that, you also. Now, after this small look into the future, let's get back to the hard facts, which brings us to the next innovation. As soon as a new position is created, a so-called empty position is created directly in the background. This contains only the basic informations. By default, the construction continues, you see it here, on the normal way by selecting the system. Of course, the question arises now, what is this empty position good for? On the one hand, it saves the basic information just mentioned, such as position number and so on, in case you cancel here the next steps. On the other hand, you can specify the settings for the project center that you only want to create the empty positions at first, and that the construction will only start when you open the position again. In this way, you can create the project structure with all positions first, especially for large projects, and then fill it with life. And also this innovation is the basis for the future with regard to the import of different file formats for the project. In addition to these preparations for the future development, which should make your everyday easier, you have given us another important topic which we have taken up here into LogiKal 12. The fundamental reason for this is that doors are becoming more and more electrified. Be it opening mechanisms, access controls, or corresponding monitoring. It is not easy to keep track of which cables are needed for that. That's why we took a look at the function of the cable plans and adapted many little things to make this even more usable. At this point, I've prepared here a door where I've already used some electrical components. Each component, no matter whether it's a lock and so on, has the information in the database whether it's an electrical component and whether additional components such as electrical control, a cable transition and so on is necessary. LogiKal then automatically offers these for selection in the construction. In addition, you can add here further components completely flexible. You distinguish whether these are components that you supply, then you take the ones which are in your database, or you take the components like the control unit by customer here, which are available on site. The former could be a card reader or what else, and this one is then actually naturally taken into account in the calculation and order. On-site components could be the EMA and so on and so on. And these are in this case only used for the representation on the cable plan. And that's exactly what we are going to do now. We open here the cable plan, and here you have the possibility by only clicking on the components to make new cable situations, new cables and so on. To connect them, you can select the cables. You can select, example cables here, or you take real special cables out of your database. And these cables are then also calculated, and you know the rest. In addition to the materials, the presentation here is also very important. Therefore, you can still move all the external parts where you want them and where you need them to make it as clear as possible here. As usual with LogiKal, the step of entering the information is followed by the step of receiving information, and this can be done in two ways here. On the one hand, you can print out the cable plan directly here from this screen. Here you have all the information you need, and then you can print out and bring it on the construction side or what you want. The other possibility is in special report. Therefore, we close here the door and go back in the project. Here in the project, we have here in the fabrication the cable plan. And on the cable plan, you get the same information we saw 1 second ago, and you get some additional informations as a parts list for all the lockings and all the cables you need. And by the way, from here, the cable plan is only one click away to bring it to AutoCAD. An example for any further processing that may be necessary and so on. You see, we are talking about an all-around carefree package for working with electrical components. And if you are missing something here, we would be very pleased to receive your feedback. If you remember, in the first webinar of the series, I already briefly said something about the well-known additional optimization projects, which I would now like to discuss in detail. We can basically say that these separate projects no longer exist in the familiar form. But of course, we have not dropped them without any replacement. We have now a solution for you that offers you even more flexibility. And to take a big worry from you straight away, your previous additional optimization projects in the actual version will be conveniently and reliably transferred to the new form. But yeah, the question is, what will the whole thing look like in the future in LogiKal 12? The idea with the additional optimization project was to be able to easily calculate profiles that are not available in the database with just a few steps to obtain cut optimizations and so on. To use this also in version 12, you simply have to go 2 steps. The first step, you create the required profiles here in the project profiles. In doing so, you specify the information for which you want to receive the reports later. I have here an example one, and we take this. By the way, if you refer here to an existing technical profile, you can even use the project profiles in the normal construction, as a substitution for the system profiles. After that, we only have to create now a material position. You know how you can do that? And there we go directly here into the additional articles. And there we can add here our project profile. With the color we want to use, we can add here the length we want to have, and we do that. And these profiles are now normally calculated in the project with all the other articles you use here in the project. And that's it. These profiles are now taken into account, just like all other profiles. And this is also exactly how your existing additional optimization projects are also transferred in the new version of LogiKal. The profiles are automatically saved as project profiles, and the entered length can be found in the corresponding material positions. Okay, we are slowly moving towards the end of today's webinar, and to conclude, I have a few small changes that of course I don't want to deprive you of. A small trick that can make your work easier is the renaming of phases and positions. Here we have also oriented ourselves even more on the familiar functions and shortcuts from Windows and other Microsoft software solutions. For the first example is that renaming works via right-clicking here. And you see, it's also possible with the shortcut F2. And there's another way to change names, quantities, and so on. You have the possibility to only click here on the quantity, on the status, and also on the position number. You can take the easy way and click on it to change it. Another topic affected many of us normally only annually, but now with the price fluctuations, it is necessary even more frequently. It is about adjusting discounts or multis for price classes in the calculation data. I know open such a calculation data set. And there I'll switch directly in the window for the price classes. Here you have all the price classes you have in your databases. And yeah, normally you can make a right click and edit the discounts. It's now possible with pressing the control button to change the discounts for all the different discount groups. You can add also here the factor and a discount. Of course, this also works if you select discounts groups that have different discounts and so on. Here you have the possibility to change the values as a percentage and whether you want to enter new absolute values. Unfortunately, we cannot help you avoid the price fluctuations, but taking them into account in LogiKal becomes even easier and faster this way. Another improvement I would like to talk about briefly is the selection of individual positions in the project for the creation of output list, exports and so on. With a new version, you have various ways to do this. Basically, a position that you have clicked on is selected. You can select several positions with the possibilities well known from Windows by holding the Control or Shift button and click on the other positions. When you select in printout or in export, then you have here the position selection. You can select all the positions. You can do it only for the marked positions here, which we have marked one step before. And you have a third possibility, the select positions. Here you can select any positions or even entire phases you want. The big advantage is that this selection is saved for the next time, regardless of whether and which positions are selected in the project. And so, quite simply, exactly the positions you need are taken into account. And with this last tip, we have reached the end of today's webinar. All the topics that I have planned for today have been covered, and I hope that some of the points will have a direct positive influence on your everyday work. And if you have questions, feel free to contact us. We wish you all the best. Stay healthy. Until then, bye.